Hello, BookTube. As I suspected, I got a bigger mail haul today, and you can see me filming on the glass in the background. What weird changes this location is causing. I'll have to fiddle around with it a little more, because some of them I'm not really happy with. I want to be able to show you images on the iPad, and I'm frontlit and backlit in this corner during the day. I wonder if the iPad would show at night. No, it doesn't. It doesn't show at all at night. It turns black for some reason. I'll figure it out. And here you've got me filming in the background, reflected on the window because the outside is not illuminated. Very strange. But anyway, in the interval since last we talked, I got a bigger mail haul, which we'll do right now. We'll see what kind of trouble we can get into. I also got a dire warning for tomorrow. Tomorrow's threat level for company, for sociability, skyrocketed in the interval between when last we talked and now. It's possible. I don't want to alarm the provinces, but it's possible that I won't be able to film a video tomorrow. We'll give it a try. Let's see. We'll wait and see. Windows often open up. It doesn't take much to film a video. After all, I don't do multiple takes. I don't do scripts. I don't do setup or lighting or studio. I don't do editing. It doesn't take long. All it takes is for me to have some sort of bee in my bonnet. But in the meantime, let's look at the mail and see what's of interest. And I should preface this. I used to preface this a lot. I often forget with two things. One, if you see a book here that you really want, something that's right up your alley, not a passing interest, not a whim, not something you might like, but something that is absolutely in your strike zone. Like, for instance, if you really love the Continental Op, I get a thing called the Big Book of the Continental Op, something like that, something square on, then let me know in the comments field, because this channel is a two-way street. I have to review a lot of these things, but when I'm done with them, I'm done with them. I'm not going to keep most of them. So I'd be happy to send it to you, wherever in rural New Zealand you happen to live. And thing number two is if you see something that you want to try your hand at reviewing for a venue that has an audience rather than, just your followers on Goodreads, I am a literary editor in addition to being a book reviewer, and I would be happy to help you. So there's those two things. Now let's see what we got here. First one is a big thick thing. Oh, wow. Okay. First one is a Steve book right out of the gate. This is by Don Jordan. It is The King's City, with subtitle "The History of London During the Restoration: City That Transformed a Nation." I am moderately familiar with the city of London during the Restoration. Wonderful. Okay, this comes out in February. During the reign of King Charles II, London was a city in flux. After years of civil war and political turmoil, England's capital became the center for major advances in the sciences, the theater, architecture, trade, and shipbuilding that paved the way for the creation of the British Empire. And the famous figures that are in the narrative are Christopher Wren, Samuel Pepys, John Dryden. So it's okay. All right, so we start with the Steve book. They won't all be like that, but let's see what the next one is. There's no chance we'll keep up this momentum. Okay. Oh, great. Okay, great. It's a slim volume of poetry, and I know you would expect that my reaction to that would immediately be disdain, but this is a slim volume of poetry that I actually liked in hardcover, and this is the book in paperback. Great, this is Lacunae. I wonder if there's a description to give you an idea of what this is. Yeah, this is Daniel Nadler's debut collection. I thought it was incredibly impressive. It's an exercise in the poetics of vital import. In it, Nadler imagines himself into the moments of unintelligibility, blank spaces in time. When faced with such ellipses as when a few deceptive hieroglyphs have worn off a wall, he infers and reconstructs the flora, fauna, and pleasures of an ancient world. I know that sounds highfalutin, but he actually digs right in. Some of these are actually very good, and here it is in paperback, and that's great because I don't have any idea where my hardcover is. So that's wonderful. Where are we going to put all this stuff? Oh, that's all right. Let's move on here. We have a few of these big white things, but they won't be They won't be science fiction, much as I would like that. They won't be that. Oh, okay, great. All right. This is a small symphonic study. It's due in early December. One of a pair that I've read that I really like. This is by James Hamilton Patterson, and it is a study of Beethoven's Eroica. And the other one was a equally short study of Handel's Messiah. And I like them both. I'm glad to have a finished copy of this. That's wonderful. So this will be a whole history of the famous vexed history of the Eroica, and that's always it's a familiar story in classical music history, but well worth retelling. A thing that's this short probably won't have anything groundbreaking or original in it, but it might have lots of fun stuff from the author about the music. That would be that's always fun. This particular one does, and so does the one on Handel's Messiah. But you never know. When you get a little study like this, you never know what you're going to get. It could be the author's just phoning it in for a mortgage payment, in which case your time is going to be wasted. It's another Steve book. Okay. All right. This is by Nicola Tallis, and it is Elizabeth's Rival. Elizabeth I and the Countess of Leicester. Oh, okay. All right. This comes out in March. A cousin to Elizabeth I, Lettice Knollys, had begun the Queen's literary reign, basking in favor and success. It was an honor that she would enjoy for 2 decades. However, on the morning of September 21st, 1578, Lettice made a fateful decision. When the Queen learned of it, the consequences were swift. Lettice had dared to marry without the Queen's consent. But worse, her new husband was Robert Dudley, Earl of Leicester, the Queen's favorite and one-time suitor. Though she would not marry him herself, Elizabeth was fiercely jealous of any woman who showed an interest in Leicester. Knowing she would be likely to earn the Queen's enmity, Lettice married Leicester in secret, leading her to permanent banishment from court. Interesting. Okay. Okay, great. So, Elizabeth's Rival. Nicola Tallis sounds kind of familiar. Oh, okay. She did Crown of Blood, which I reviewed. If I remember correctly, I'll leave the link down below. I'm going to hope that this delves a little more deeply into the subject than that summary. That summary I was, of course, going to read that way. But as I often want, when I'm reading books, as I often want to remind biographers of Elizabeth I or writers about her history, as I often want to remind them, she wasn't a child. Here's hoping that the book goes into much greater depth than just, you can't marry him because I like him. But because there were all sorts of other things going on. Anyway, we'll see. I'll report back because I will certainly be reviewing that. Let's see what this next one is. Oh, great. Okay. All right, great. This is the second copy of the Reader's Advance of the Overstory by Richard Powers, which I read from on this channel, but I did not read about. So let me describe it to you. This comes out in April. The Overstory unfolds in concentric circles of interlocking fable that range from antebellum New York to the late 20th century timber wars of the Pacific Northwest. An Air Force loadmaster in the Vietnam War is shot out of the sky and saved by falling into a banyan. An artist inherits hundreds of years of photographic portraits, all of the same doomed American chestnut. A hard-partying undergraduate in the late 80s electrocutes herself, dies, and is sent back into life by creatures of air and light. A hearing and speech-impaired scientist discovered how trees are communicating with each other. These 4 and 5 other strangers, each summoned in different ways by trees, are brought together in a last violent stand to save the continent's few remaining acres of virgin forest. Which is, even on its face, even in that little snippet, this is going to be Richard Powers in full weirdo mode. And I love that. I absolutely love this author. And it's been a huge effort of will not to read this book. I have lots of other things to get to. I don't want to sink myself into Richard Powers until the new year. And then we've got 2 of these big board things, and then we're done. For what may be, these videos today may have to last you. I might not be able to make one tomorrow. I will assess the ground as it lays, but I might not be able to. Oh, okay, great. We've seen these authors before. This comes out any day now from Tor. And it's another book. This is Michael and Kathleen O'Neill Gear. They do novels set in Paleolithic America. And they've done a ton of them, like 30 of them. Hold on a second here. There you go. This one is called Moon Hunt. But these are always interesting, no matter what they do. Let's see what this one's about. I've never even heard of it. The Lord God of Cahokia has been spirited away to the underworld, and the Empire teeters on the brink of disaster as clans fight for control. Night Shadow Star, the god's human sister, and Firecat, her warrior bodyguard, are the only two people who can bring him back. They descend into the sacred cave where monsters dwell, willing to sacrifice themselves to save their kingdom. And what they find makes them question if that sacrifice is worth it. Moon Hunt is the third epic tale in the Morning Star series by these two best-selling authors. Against the intricate majesty of America's greatest pre-Columbian city, the Gears have once again woven the latest archaeological data into a painstakingly accurate reconstruction of Cahokia and provide a rare look into the mystical underpinnings of Native American culture. And I read the first two volumes in this series and was amazed at the facts behind Cahokia. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but it was a massive megalopolis in prehistoric America, which is kind of amazing. The full extent of it is kind of amazing. Of course, the Lord God of Cahokia was not spirited into the underworld, and these two characters do not descend into the underworld in order to rescue him, because there's no such thing as an underworld or the Lord God of Cahokia. But it's fiction. So we'll stretch a point. It's just a little bit worrisome when things like that are cheek by jowl with hard and fast, really responsible archaeological research. Kind of hard seeing the two together like that. Let's see what this next one is. Another finished copy by the look of it. Oh, great. Fantastic. Fantastic. This was a great book. We saw it on this channel before, and I didn't know anything about it, and I hadn't read it. Now I have it. I can't. This is a perfect example of why I love getting finished copies, because then I just take it as a sign to reread the book, and I'm eager to do it. This comes out in early December. This is the finished copy of Exact Thinking in Demented Times. The Vienna Circle and the Epic Quest for the Foundation of Science by Carl Sigmund. Let me read this to you just again. I know we read it the first time, but this was really good. A rereading in the finished copy could lessen my opinion. That sometimes happens, but I'd be surprised if it did. In post-World War I Vienna, some of the most brilliant minds of that generation came together to prove true or false the ideas that had supported math, physics, and philosophy since antiquity, but which were essentially assumptions. Inspired by Albert Einstein's theory of relativity and Bertrand Russell's search for the foundations of mathematics, these young intellectuals sought to develop and propagate a worldview entirely based on science. They called themselves the Vienna Circle. I honestly didn't think intellectual history is not my forte. I honestly did not think that the author could sustain this, and instead, it's a beautiful job. So, great, fantastic. All right, so we have Exact Thinking in Demented Times, Moon Hunt by the Gears, The Overstory by Richard Powers, in which Virgin Forest fights to save its own life, Elizabeth's Rival about the Countess of Leicester. Let's see here, let's get these in size order. The King's City about the London of Samuel Pepys. Doesn't get much more spot on than that. Lacunae, a slim volume of poetry that I actually stand behind. 2 thumbs up for it. And Beethoven's Eroica, a study of Beethoven's first great symphony. So there you go. That is a very good mail haul. I'm going to dig right into it right now. And I will, I hope, see you tomorrow. Thank you, BookTube.